I was just sitting thinking to myself, self, this has been a crazy NFL offseason. And I really didn't have a direction for today's show. I was just going to come in, shoot the shit with y'all, talk about, anything under the sun, NFL related, and then maybe some things not NFL related. But as I just sat there thinking about how wild, and we've said this on this podcast at least 10 times this offseason. This is one of the craziest, it is the craziest NFL offseason that we've ever witnessed. And so many things happen that it's easy to forget some of the things that transpired. Look, I didn't even make a list because this was so last minute. I've got a list of all 32 teams in front of me. And what I'm going to essentially do is go through each team and just see if it jogs my memory as to if something major happened with that team this offseason or not. I mean, so many things have transpired. It's easy to forget, and normally this is something that you do as you get closer to the start of the regular season. But, after just sitting here and thinking about some of the things that have happened and how different some of these teams look because of moves made this offseason, I thought what a good time now is as we start to head into June. We're heading into Memorial Day weekend. What a good time right now is to talk about, some of the things that have happened and what has been the craziest NFL offseason we've seen to date. So with that said, let's get this podcast underway. The 263rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast starts now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 263rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I've already kind of laid out the foundation for today's show. I don't want to waste a bunch of time, being that this podcast is getting started a little bit later than I wanted it to. So we're just going to jump straight into the proceedings this evening, if you don't mind, and I know you don't. So without any further ado, let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So this NFL offseason has been absolutely BANANAS bananas, okay? There's no other way to describe it. It's been one of the craziest off seasons we've ever seen, and it's just been a frenzy of moves, transactions, and trades to really shake up the landscape of the NFL. We've seen guys retire. We've seen guys get traded, specifically quarterbacks, but there are other moves that have happened that, you might have forgotten about because so many things have transpired. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through each and every single team and see if anything's happened with that team this offseason that was a major move in what was a crazy, zany NFL offseason. So let's dive right in. And I'm just going to go in the order of the teams and looking at them on the NFL website. And we're just going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. And they traded Hollywood Brown, during the draft. And, it was crazy. He wanted a bigger role in the offense. He felt like they were stunting his growth because they are so tight end dominant in Baltimore. And I think it's very evident that the tight end is more valuable than the receiver position. They trade away Hollywood Brown and they draft two more tight ends. I mean, that's kind of how the Ravens are operating these days. Is they trade away a guy that was supposed to be their number one wide receiver. And maybe they're feeling like Rashad Bateman's going to take over that role. We'll see. But they trade away a receiver, and instead of replacing that receiver, they draft two more tight ends. And they had the tight end that led all of tight ends in the league in receiving and was one of the leading receivers in all of the National Football League last season in Mark Andrews. They just add two more tight ends to the mix. So a big trade, though, for the Ravens, moving on from Hollywood Brown and using that draft pick to then fortify the offensive line, taking Tyler Lindenbaum. So that was a big move. Lamar Jackson still has not gotten a new deal. They had to franchise tag him. We'll see where this thing goes, but clearly they're not on the same page as far as contracts are concerned, or I think they didn't have to franchise tag him. I think he's going into the last year of his deal, and they will have to franchise tag him next year in order to protect him from the rest of the league. And that situation is worth monitoring because they've already spoken about the situation, they being the front office of the Baltimore Ravens, pretty much saying, look, uh, Lamar is focused on winning. However, it does kind of feel like he's putting us in a Kirk Cousins type of box right now. We'll see how that situation manifests itself. The Cincinnati Bengals really didn't have much going on this offseason. This, again, their major moves came last offseason when they went crazy in free agency. Larry Ogunjobi and the edge rusher from Trey Hendrickson and Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton. They revamped that defense essentially overnight with all the moves that they made, and it turned out to be very fruitful for them. Nothing really major for Cincinnati in the way of free agency and the draft this year, however. Cleveland clearly was a major part of the offseason. First and foremost, the biggest news for them is trading for Deshaun Watson. But how that whole situation came about was really zany because they had no interest in going above and beyond the way that they ultimately did with a 5-year, $230 million deal that's essentially fully guaranteed with clauses in the deal that ensured Deshaun Watson that he'll get pretty much all of his money. They pretty much put themselves in a position where he couldn't refuse the deal. It was the best thing on the table, and he wasn't going to get anything better. And the reason they came to that conclusion is because Baker Mayfield started running off at the lip, and he tried to flex muscles like he had it like that. And they said, "Oh, it's like that, Bake. You want out now because you feel disrespected that we tried to upgrade the position behind your back." Look, they didn't do it the right way. They didn't go about it. I mean, there's no right way to tell a guy you're looking to upgrade him, right? That's not an easy conversation, nor is it one that the guy that you're trying to upgrade is trying to have. And we'll talk about another situation that ended just like this one is going to ultimately end because a quarterback felt slighted a little bit later on. But Baker Mayfield got in his feelings, penned a letter to the fans, pretty much said, "I'm done here." And the Browns said, "Oh, you done now? We was going to come back to you. Oh, you done now?" All right. They went and gave Deshaun Watson the richest contract essentially in NFL history in terms of, fully guaranteed money. We've never seen anything quite like that before. So, yeah, I mean, it is a big move for the Browns. It's a sign that they're trying to go for it in a conference that is just ridiculously loaded at the quarterback position. Hell, their division itself isn't half bad with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow already there. So they knew they were already competing against elite level quarterbacks as is. They needed to throw their name in the hat, and they did with Deshaun Watson, among other moves. They also traded for Amari Cooper. Don't forget about that. When the ball's in the sky and your QB needs a guy, it's somebody. Amari Cooper is now a member of the Cleveland Browns, and so the Browns have been extremely busy this offseason, putting themselves in a position to not only compete with the Bengals, who went all the way to the Super Bowl, but with the Ravens and the Steelers. Don't forget about the Steelers. They made the playoffs last year. The Ravens did not. The Steelers snuck in the back door of the postseason last year. So this Browns team is right back in a position to compete at a very high level with the moves made this off season. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Okay, so one of the moves that was so quiet because of all the noise this offseason created, one of the quietest retirements you will ever see, Ben Roethlisberger retires, right? Nobody even bats an eye. You could hear a pin drop. Normally when a guy of his stature, and maybe it has something to do with his past, there's still a lot of people who haven't let that go and haven't moved on, and that's fine. I'm not here to tell you should have moved on, but for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of fanfare when he retired, and did I miss a press conference of him retiring and the whole teary-eyed thing? You bring your family, former teammates show up. It's, everybody sings Kumbaya and says their final goodbyes one last time. Did that happen? Did I miss that? I don't think I did, which leaves the door open for him to do something. He needs to sit his ass down when it's all said and done. So he retires. They draft Kenny Pickett to take his place. They also sign quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. So they've got stuff at quarterback. We don't know how good any of it is, but they've got stuff. at the quarterback position. They moved on from Juju Smith-Schuster at the receiver position. Same with James Washington. Both of those guys have found new homes at the receiver position. So it was apparent that they were going to have to do something at receiver. They ended up drafting George Pickens out of Georgia in the second round. So we'll see what the Steelers look like this offseason. They've also moved on from cornerback Joe Hayden as well, signed Levi Wallace, a cornerback from the Buffalo Bills, in free agency in the offseason. So the Steelers are going to look a little bit different this upcoming season. They also have some front office moves and some shakeups there. Their longtime GM, Kevin Colbert, retiring. They just hired a new GM today. I think they promoted from within, if I'm not mistaken. Omar something is his name. I can't quite remember exactly what his name is, but it's Omar something. And I think he's a guy that was already within the organization, so they're just promoting from within. And then they're going to get a new, because I think he was like the vice president, the VP, or the assistant GM. He's not going to take the head job, and then they're going to hire from outside a new assistant GM. I think someone from the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, we move on to the next team, the Buffalo Bills. And I talked about, Buffalo and Cincinnati being two of the more complete teams in all of the National Football League. So the Bills really didn't need to do much. But when you feel like you're really close and you lose in the fashion that they did last season, it forces you to do something epic. And that's what the Bills did this offseason, giving Von Miller a 6-year, $121 million deal. Now, again, that's paper money. It's really a 3-year, $60-some-odd million deal. But it doesn't matter. Von Miller, at this stage of his career, still a potent and impactful edge rusher, as we saw when he went to the Rams, kind of shifting the balance of power defensively and having a monster Super Bowl that helped propel including the final stages of that game, really getting to Burrow and making him uncomfortable. The Bills now see that they need to get someone on the edge, and they're hoping that Gregory Rousseau morphs into a big-time pass rusher. But in the interim, they've got Von Miller on a massive deal that they're hoping shifts the balance of power in the AFC to them, with a guy that they feel like is a closer on the defensive side of the football. And they're going to need him because there's a lot of weaponry entering their division. Speaking of which, the Miami Dolphins had quite the offseason. That is for sure. They trade Devontae Parker to a rival in the division, so a family member in the New England Patriots. So they trade him. Why did they trade him? Why are they making room at the wide receiver position? Funny that you ask, because they made one of the biggest blockbuster deals that was not a quarterback this entire offseason. And really his deal that they struck to get Tyreek Hill from the Kansas City Chiefs was on par with the deals we saw teams giving up for quarterbacks. It was amazing to see how many picks the Chiefs were actually able to fetch in return for Tyreek Hill's services. He's now a member of the Miami Dolphins. They pair him up with Jalen Waddle. They may have the two fastest receivers that any team can put out on the field at the same time as starters in the league. They've got quite a few receivers in Miami, and now they've got two guys that can pick them up and put them down with the best of them. So the Dolphins are retooling. They also had a reshuffling of the deck in the at the coaching position. Remember, Brian Flores was ousted. There was a lot of controversy there. He's currently suing the league for some of the practices that the league has had with people of color, and he's trying to shed light on that situation. And he says he doesn't mind being the scapegoat here, or the sacrificial lamb, if you will, in case the league frowns upon what he's currently doing, suing them and not wanting to give him a job as a head coach. He's back in the league as an assistant with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they hired Mike McDaniel to be their new head coach. He comes over from San Francisco. So we'll see what this Dolphins offense looks like, but they now have Tyreek Hill in the fold. The Patriots, not really much to speak of. A lot of their big moves were last year. They did allow J.C. Jackson, the big free agent corner, to leave. He's now a member of the Los Angeles Chargers. I talked about them trading for Devontae Parker at the wide receiver position, but nothing really noteworthy has gone on with the New England Patriots. They did lose their offensive coordinator. That we talked about that last podcast about some of the issues they may be having offensively this year and how they're kind of confused as to what direction they want to go in. But if you want more on that, go look at the last podcast and take a listen there during the final segment of the show. The Jets, they were very active in trying to pursue a number one wide receiver. They inquired about trading for Tyreek Hill. They were in the sweepstakes and they were one of the last teams, but they were outbidded by the Miami Dolphins. They inquired about trading for DK Metcalf. Their advances were turned down by the Seattle Seahawks. They ultimately decided to just stay at number 10, which is what they were dangling out there to teams that they were trying to pry away wide receivers from, and ended up taking Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. So they got their receiver. They wanted a veteran to pair with their young quarterback, but the Jets are a team that they made a bunch of moves in the offseason to really fortify that roster, especially they were the anti-Chicago Bears in the sense of getting weapons to surround their young quarterback and really make him comfortable. They went out and got not one, not two, but 3 brand new tight ends, 2 in free agency, CJ Uzomah from Cincinnati, also a tight end from Minnesota that's a really good pass-catching tight end. And then they went and drafted one of my favorite players in the draft, Ruckert from Ohio State at the tight end position, in Jeremy Ruckert. So they've got 3 new tight ends. They also drafted a new receiver to go along with Corey Davis. They re-signed Braxton Berrios, allowed Jamison Crowder to walk away. He's now in Buffalo. And so all of a sudden now they've got 3 receivers that they feel really good about: Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, Braxton Berrios. They've got 3 tight ends they feel really good about. And, oh, by the way, they drafted a running back in the 2nd round, the first running back off the board and the best running back in the draft, Breece Hall. So they've really cleaned up the skill position around Zach Wilson, and they've also fortified the offensive line as well. So that's a group that they've done it the right way, at least how you perceive it to be the right way when it comes to a young quarterback. We'll see if they get the results that they're looking for, but the Jets have had a very active offseason. That is for certain. You go to the Houston Texans. Again, they trade Deshaun Watson, blockbuster move. They finally get from under that whole situation and saga. They move forward. They themselves shuffle around the deck in the front office. They move on from their head coach. They had I'm still pissed about how they did my guy David Culley. The only thing I can say that I love about the situation is Culley's winning. He's getting his bread. You know, they essentially paid him, you know, for 3 more years, they're going to pay him to do nothing. If he wants to coach football, he can. If he wants to sit at home on the fat part of his ass and love on his grandkids, he can do that, because they're going to be paying him for the next 3 years. That's the one thing that I take from it and say he's got a dub there. But they did that man dirty. All he did was really have them competing at a high level with not a lot of talent last season. Yeah, there were some ass whoopings in there, you know, some big time ass whoopings, but that roster was going to get their ass beat a couple of times with what they were going to put on the field. That said, they competed, man. And I thought he did a hell of a job with not a lot of options for him to go to. So they've now hired Lovie Smith. We'll see what happens there. They're going to roll with Davis Mills at the quarterback position. I'm anxious to see what he does for an encore. He was actually really good in his rookie season, which is why they're going to give him an opportunity to prove he can be the guy. We'll see what happens with the Texans, but the blockbuster deal for them was trading Deshaun Watson and getting draft capital and some good football players, you know, in return for Watson moving on to the Cleveland Browns. They also were able to move on from safety Justin Reed, who's now in Kansas City. So that created a void. They filled it via the draft. A lot of things going on in Houston. The roster is shifting in Houston, and they look like a team that next year is going to have all this cap space and all this draft capital, and that's a team to keep an eye on in Houston. If Davis Mills is the guy, they could be set up for a little bit of success here in the near future. Indianapolis, they were a huge hot spot for drama, news, and entertainment this offseason because they had the whole Carson Wentz saga. They're still talking about Carson Wentz to this day. I mean, his name stays in their mouth, but they trade Carson Wentz to the Washington Commanders. But not only do they trade Carson Wentz to the Commanders, they weren't really, they didn't have a quarterback. They didn't know what the hell they were going to do. It was a knee-jerk reaction. They didn't really prepare themselves for, the decision that they had made. They just did it, and then it kind of put themselves in a quandary. And luckily enough for them, the Falcons were going in a different direction. It opened up an opportunity for them to get their hands on Matt Ryan. So they actually trade for Matt Ryan. So it was a very interesting offseason, to say the least, for the Indianapolis Colts. Moving on from Carson Wentz, having that thing be as messy as it was on the way out, and then getting Matt Ryan to come in and feeling like they've got a chance to compete at a very high level in what many think is the weakest division in all of football. So we will see what happens. But Indianapolis was a very, very interesting topic of discussion this offseason, with the quarterback position in particular, because that's a quality roster in Indianapolis, but a lot of craziness going on with the Indianapolis Colts. They just, by the way, signed Nicholas Foles to a deal, reuniting him with Frank Wright. Now, the reuniting of quarterbacks with Frank Wright in Indianapolis hasn't always gone as well as we thought, but one thing we know for sure, Nicholas Foles knows how to play good football when he's a backup quarterback. So if anything should happen to Matt Ryan, they may be in really good hands in Indianapolis. So that's a good move, I think, for them, because that was the problem last year. If Wentz couldn't play, who were you going to turn to? Were you going to turn to Sam Ehlinger? I mean, what were you going to do? Now you don't have to worry about that now with, Nicholas Foles in the fold. Jacksonville, they're a team that is constantly shuffling the deck. They had an interesting offseason. They were aggressive in free agency. They went out and signed Brandon Sheriff. They gave a big deal to wide receiver Christian Kirk. That kind of helped reset the wide receiver market, if you will. But the biggest move they made was not only retaining GM Trent Baalke. A lot of people in league circles, including people in that same organization, wanted Baalke removed as GM. And so there were a lot of extenuating circumstances and outside, factors that made it seem as if Baalke was going to be out. There were a lot of guys that wanted the job but said, I don't want to work with Trent Baalke, and Jacksonville and Sheikh Khan, their owner, did not buckle under the pressure of everyone telling them get rid of Trent Baalke. Let's see if it works out for them or not. But Baalke not only remains as GM in Jacksonville, they also hired Doug Peterson, and that to me was the biggest move of the offseason for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The free agent pickups were nice, and all of that is great. You're getting Travis Etienne back. He's like another rookie added to the class that you drafted this year. They don't need to even talk about any of those players, but Doug Peterson should be the topic of discussion, because he is a Super Bowl winning coach and a guy that is capable of taking a young, talented offensive roster and making them formidable. So that is a really big move for them, and we'll see if it pans out for Jacksonville or not. But they had a very busy offseason, did the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tennessee Titans, speaking of busy off seasons, they were quite busy this offseason themselves. There were rumors about them being interested in one of these veteran quarterbacks. Mainly, Aaron Rodgers was the one that a lot of people were linking to the Titans. They wanted to upgrade the position. We saw the disaster that was Ryan Tannehill in the playoff game last year. Remember, a lot of people forget this. The Tennessee Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC last season. They had the first round bye, and nobody respected them, including yours truly. I picked them to lose whomever they played, and I said Cincinnati's going to go in there and beat them, and they did. It was not pretty. It was gritty. Most importantly, it was a dub for the Bengals. But Tannehill threw 3 interceptions, including one on the very first possession of the game, and then one on the final possession offensively for Tennessee that sealed their fate. So There were a lot of questions as to whether he would be back. They drafted Malik Willis in the draft, to which Tannehill, said to reporters, "It's not my job to mentor him." That created a little bit of a media firestorm there. And I didn't think he said anything wrong. It's not his job to mentor him, but he's going to help him. Clearly, he's not going to just leave the kid out to dry. If he's got a question, he's going to answer it. But he's like, look, I'm not going out of my way to show him the ropes. So that created a little bit of a media firestorm. But the real smoke came on draft night, day one, when the Titans, who could not strike a deal with star wide receiver A.J. Brown, decided to trade him to the Philadelphia Eagles, to which they came up and ended up getting wide receiver Treylon Burks. But A.J. Brown was such a huge part of their team. And then after the deal, A.J. Brown came out and said, "I wanted to remain in Tennessee. I told them I would take $22 million. They tried to give me 19. And so we don't know who to believe, because I don't have any reason to doubt A.J. Brown, but that sounds good. But the Titans weren't willing to come over 19. Like, come on, dude. What did you think you were going to, get done at 19? Like, seriously. If that's true, the Titans were being frugal and they needed to do what they did. So they move on from A.J. Brown. Remember, they had also traded earlier in the offseason for wide receiver from the Rams, Woods. They traded for Woods, the receiver from the Rams. So you felt good about A.J. Brown and Woods being there. You said if they could just add one more guy in the slot, which they did in Kyle Phillips via the draft from UCLA, you said, okay, they could have a formidable group, because the receiver position left a lot to be desired last year, especially with Julio Jones being injured as often as he was. But now, no A.J. Brown. You're relying on a rookie and Treylon Burks. Robert Woods is probably going to have to be your de facto one until Treylon Burks is ready to ascend to that role. I think they've taken a step back. Honestly, the Titans have. We'll see how the beauty of it is they play in a division that's not going to demand them to be great in order to make the postseason. But Jacksonville got better this offseason. The Colts are still the Colts. I don't know if they got any better or not. And the Texans are getting better. So I think the Titans kind of came back to the pack, sort of speak, with some of the moves made this offseason, but they were busy nonetheless. Now you go to the toughest division in all of football. It is just loaded at the quarterback position. Why is it loaded? Because the Denver Broncos traded for Russell Wilson. It changed everything. And I mean, wow, it's a big move. The last two Super Bowl winning teams traded for quarterbacks in that offseason, and that quarterback propelled them to a Super Bowl. 2 years ago, it was Tom Brady. The Bucs didn't trade for Tom Brady. He just signed there as a free agent. Last year, the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford. They all go on to win the Super Bowl. And now the Broncos are hoping that the same thing happens and history repeats itself. The last time they won a Super Bowl, it was with Peyton Manning. They're hoping that another veteran quarterback later on in his career is able to come on board and help them win a Super Bowl. So that was a massive move by the Denver Broncos. They're going for it. They trade away Albert O. They trade away Shelby Harris in that deal, along with some draft capital. And also, Drew Lock is now a member of the Seattle Seahawks. So a lot happened with the Denver Broncos this offseason, but nothing is more important than what they did to go and get a quarterback that they think can put them over the top in Russell Wilson. The Kansas City Chiefs, we talked about the blockbuster deal that really shook the NFL at its core and sent shockwaves through the league. No one expected Tyreek Hill to be traded. We expected Russell Wilson to maybe get traded, even though the Seahawks tried to make it seem as if they weren't interested in dealing him. We knew that, Matt Ryan might be a guy that gets traded. We knew Carson Wentz was going to be potentially available. We knew about a lot of the quarterback movement that we saw. We didn't expect Tyreek Hill to be traded from Kansas City to the Miami Dolphins. That was a crazy move. But the Chiefs were really busy this offseason. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They signed Justin Reed at the safety position. They moved on from Tyrann Mathieu. They did a lot of things that, put them in a position. They signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS, from the Green Bay Packers at the receiver position. So they've done a lot of things to soften the blow and the impact of losing Tyreek Hill. It won't change the fact that the most dynamic receiver in football is no longer on their team, but it will lessen the impact of him no longer being there. Plus, they drafted Sky Moore in the second round. So a lot of things that the Chiefs have done puts them in a position to compete right away. And with Patrick Mahomes, you expect them to do exactly that. Him and Andy Reid, you expect them to continue to keep the party going. But again, a busy offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs as well. The Vegas Raiders, you want to talk about a busy offseason? They were very busy. They signed Chandler Jones to a big contract in the offseason. They pair him with Max Crosby, who also got a new fat contract in the offseason. So now they've got a formidable duo as a couple of pass rushers in Vegas. But again, nothing trumps what they were able to do at the receiver position, trading for Davante Adams from the Green Bay Packers, and then giving him one of the richest contracts in NFL history, the richest contract at the time for a wide receiver, big time money, which prompted Tyreek Hill to want to top that, and he did once he was traded to the Miami Dolphins. So the Raiders were extremely busy. They too made some moves in their front office. Ziegler is now their GM. He comes over from New England as an assistant there. He's now the head guy in the Vegas front office. With him, he brought Josh McDaniels to be his new head coach, the offensive coordinator, longtime offensive coordinator in New England, now the head man in Vegas. So a lot of shakeups there for the Vegas Raiders. They give Derek Carr new money, keep him in Vegas. And so now we're going to see if the Raiders, all these investments that they have, it looks like the one guy that's going to ultimately lose out here is Darren Waller. It doesn't look like he's going to get his money in Vegas, but that's not something they're worried about right now. They want to see how all of this comes together with a true number one wide receiver, which is something they've lacked in Vegas for quite some time, in Davante Adams entering that mix. So they've made moves defensively. They got rid of arguably their weakest link, which was their GM and Mike Mayock. They did not retain Rich Bisaccia, and so they revamped the front office, get a new head coach, get a number one wide receiver, pay their quarterback, pay their edge rusher, and also sign another big edge rusher in Chandler Jones. Look out for the Vegas Raiders. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And then the Chargers, they weren't outdone. And this is an arms race in the AFC West, okay? You better come with some big guns that go brat, brat, because everybody else in the division is retooling, reloading, and ready to fire at moment's notice. And the Chargers said, well, shit, you ain't going to have us out here looking crazy in these streets. So they went and got a bunch of straps, and they're ready to compete. They go out this offseason and they re-signed Mike Williams, which was something that had to happen. Okay, they had to bring Mike Williams back, and they did that. But then they turn around and they are able to go out, get J.C. Jackson in free agency, which was a big move for them. All right, but they weren't done there. They trade for Khalil Mack, okay, and pair him with Joey Bosa to form one of the most ferocious pass rush duos in the entire National Football League. And so all of a sudden now they're looking scary on the defensive side of the football. I was shocked that they didn't re-sign Kaiser White, but they feel good about what they've done. They allowed Uchenna Nwosu to go to Seattle. They now have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa coming off the edge. That's going to be a scary proposition for NFL teams. And so when you look at that secondary now with the addition of J.C. Jackson, that group right there has a chance. That defense now has a chance to be one of the scarier groups. They were already one of the fastest defenses in football. Now they're one of the fastest and most skilled defenses in football. The Chargers are right there looking to compete, man. So interesting times in the AFC West. That is for sure. Now we go to the NFC side of the bracket and the Chicago Bears. Really not a lot of noise coming out of Chicago. They did shuffle around their front office now. Ryan Poles is the new GM for the Bears. They got rid of Ryan Pace. They moved on from their head coach and replaced him with Matt Eberflus coming over from, and Broncos did the same thing. I don't want to leave that out. They also have a head coaching change in Denver. Um, I, they hired Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator. So now that situation is all squared away, and it makes a ton of sense. Hackett, has, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has a working history with Russell Wilson. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that though. But the Bears, too, have reshuffled the quarterback deck, or head coaching deck, excuse me, by hiring Colts ex defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. And so new GM, new head coach, same old Bears. All right. They did nothing this offseason. Wasn't overly impressed with their draft. Maybe the draft will serve as a foundation, though. I think they ended up having like 9 or 10 picks, maybe even 11 picks in the draft. But it wasn't a needle moving draft for me. They did not, like I said, they're anti New York Jets. They got a second year quarterback just like the Jets do in Justin Fields, yet they did absolutely nothing to make Justin Fields feel like he's the guy and they're going to make sure he's successful. So they move on from Allen Robinson, which everyone knew was going to happen. He's now in LA with the Rams, and they didn't do much of anything to offset the fact that he's no longer there. They draft Velus Jones Jr. in the draft, but again, he's not a replacement. He's another guy that would have been nice to complement Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney, but they didn't do anything at running back. They didn't do anything at receiver or tight end. They have some tight ends that are talented on the roster already, but it's just not enough in Chicago. But we'll see what happens. Quiet offseason from a player acquisition standpoint, but shuffling the deck in the front office and getting a new head coach were the highlights of the Bears offseason. Detroit Lions. This is a team that is going to be featured on Hard Knocks. This is a team that last year was in the news heavy in the offseason because of their trading of Matthew Stafford. They got Jared Goff and some first-round picks, 2 to be exact, in return. But this year they were a little bit quieter in the offseason. They did make some moves, like acquiring wide receiver DJ Chark on a 1-year deal. They did some quiet moves like that. Nothing really earth-shattering, but their draft was phenomenal, getting the edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. Then they turned around, traded up for Jameson Williams from Alabama. I thought they did some really good things early in the draft. So the Lions, excuse me, are a team that's steadily improving, but nothing really, needle moving from a news standpoint in the offseason. The Green Bay Packers, clearly they trade away Devontae Adams. We talked about that. That was their big news of the offseason. What was a little shocking was not a lot of movement at receiver to try to replenish the position, similar to what the Chiefs went through. The Chiefs said immediately, we have to act. They had already signed Juju Smith-Schuster. He was supposed to be a complement to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. He also, he ultimately, bumps up now in importance with the departure of Tyreek Hill, but they had already started that process. They went out and got MVS, and then they drafted the guy. The Packers did something similar, but it didn't seem like they were as urgent. Maybe they felt a little bit more confident about the guys they already had on the roster. I don't know, but they did sign Samuel Watkins, so he's going to be in Green Bay. And then they did draft like 3 receivers as well, the most notable Christian Watson. So we'll see what happens with the Green Bay Packers. They pretty much kept their guys. They did release Zadarius Smith, but they pretty much kept all of their guys in-house. Jair Alexander got a big deal at the cornerback position. So Green Bay, traded away their biggest wide receiver, and we'll see how that impacts their offense. But Aaron Rodgers was a big topic of the offseason. He's staying put, got a new deal to stay in Green Bay. So that's the other piece of news there. But I never thought he was leaving, and so that situation has resolved itself. Now we got to see what happens at wide receiver. The Minnesota Vikings, another team with a shakeup in the front office, new GM, new head coach, and they hired Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell to be their new head guy at the head coach position. And really, that was the biggest piece of news. Nothing really, noteworthy from a roster standpoint. No really big trades or big moves. They did re-sign Patrick Peterson. That was big for them. But outside of that, they're bringing back the entire group essentially, and they're going to see how this thing plays itself out. Make some moves, bring in some players, draft some guys, shake the roster up a little bit, and see if you can't get some different results. Dallas Cowboys. It was a mass exodus this year for the Dallas Cowboys in the offseason. Less about them acquiring guys, more about them, moving on from players or trading them away. So you start with Amari Cooper. We talked about that already, so we don't have to harp on that too much more. But they traded him for not a lot, but again, they were hoping someone would take that contract off their hands. So they were just elated to get that contract removed off the books. But no more Amari Cooper. They did re-sign, however, wide receiver Michael Gallup, who was a free agent. So thought Gallup was going to be the odd man out with Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. It ended up being Cooper who was the odd man out. Re-signed Gallup for a lot less than Cooper's 5-year $100 million deal. So they still have Michael Gallup. They added James Washington because they also lost wide receiver Cedric Wilson to the Miami Dolphins in free agency. So that was another guy that they needed to replace. They also had some draft picks, Jalen Tolbert, most notably at the receiver position, that they're looking to have fill that void. You also look at the offensive line. They lost a couple of guys there. Connor Williams, who stinks. I don't think they were really hurting letting him walk away. He's now in Miami. And the big one was La'el Collins, who they pretty much gave away for a hot ham and cheese sandwich that was cold. He's now in Cincinnati. And so more turnover on that offensive line. They're looking to replace some of those guys. So they lose also edge rusher, which was a weird situation. It looked like he was going to re-sign in Dallas. There was some language in the contract that he wasn't fond of. Dallas wouldn't remove it. So he ultimately goes and signs with the Denver Broncos. So that's another move for Denver this offseason that I failed to mention. But that is edge rusher. Shucks, what's my man from Nebraska? Why am I blanking on his name? But it'll come to me. So he's now a member of the Broncos, no longer in Dallas. So that left a void at edge rusher, one that Dallas decided to try and fill with their second round pick, Sam Williams, out of Ole Miss. So again, Dallas lost a lot of talented football players. Randy Gregory, thank you, Vanguardian TV. Randy Gregory was the edge rusher that is now in Denver. So Dallas lost a lot of guys. We'll see, how they navigate their way through that. But the guys that they didn't lose were just as important, including their defensive coordinator, who I said was the biggest move, not just on their team, but in the division last year, was them getting the ex Atlanta Falcons head coach to be their defensive coordinator. And he did wonders for that defensive unit. And I thought he was going to get a head coaching job. And he actually turned down a couple of opportunities. I think the most notable was Jacksonville. I think they were ready to offer. And he was like, nah, not Gus Bradley, excuse me. Why am I blanking on his name? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name either, but I can see his face. But him coming back, I wanted him gone because he really helped turn that Dallas Cowboys defense around. But he didn't take a job. He stayed in Dallas. And so that's a good move for them. And they kept their tight end, put the franchise tag on him. They'll have him for one more year. And that was a good move for Dallas as well. The Giants, another team shaking up their front office, brand new GM, Joe Shane, coming over from Buffalo. He was the assistant GM there. Dan Quinn, thank you, Rich, was the defensive coordinator that stayed in Dallas. Dan Quinn. Joe Shane comes over from Buffalo, similar to what happened with the Raiders, where they get an assistant GM from New England. He brings the offensive coordinator from New England with him. Same thing in New York. Joe Shane comes in, assistant GM in Buffalo, brings the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator with him to be his head coach. So Um, that's a nice little pairing there. They had a strong draft, did the Giants. They did, however, have to release cornerback James Bradberry. They did not pick up the fifth-year option on Daniel Jones's contract. So that pretty much means this is the last year, pretty much, of that entire iteration of Jones and Saquon Barkley at running back. If those guys don't show improve this year, both of them will be gone next offseason. So this is a big year for those two, but they definitely went out and fortified a lot of the other positions around those guys. So we'll see if they can stay healthy, play at a high enough level that interests the Giants and make them want those players back next season. But as of right now, looks like Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones are playing their last years in New York for the Giants. So Giants make a lot of moves in the front office. They also bring in Tyrod Taylor as a backup quarterback, which I think is a really good move for them in the event that Daniel Jones goes down. They got a competent backup quarterback that can come in and win them some football games. So the Giants continuing to improve, and they had a really strong draft, did the New York Giants. The Philadelphia Eagles, another team with an impressive offseason. They had an A-plus offseason, did the Philadelphia Eagles. It started with them going out in free agency, getting edge rusher Hassan Reddick. They also were able to get confirmation from Jason Kelsey that he was going to be back. That was a massive move. They also bring back Fletcher Cox on a one-year deal. So they kind of kept a lot of those band members around for at least one more year. Then it kind of matriculated itself into them getting Kaiser White at the linebacker position, which was a big position of need for the Philadelphia Eagles. They were able to double down on that position in the draft by getting Nakobe Dean in the third round. But the biggest move made by the Eagles this offseason was the trading for A.J. Brown. We talked about that already, so I don't need to harp on that, but that's a big move. It gives them a legitimate number one option, even though I thought Devontae Smith was heading and trending towards number one status. It gives them a legit number one right away to help Jalen Hurts potentially put a stranglehold on the quarterback position, along with Devontae Smith and some of the other receivers that they now have on the roster. So the Eagles definitely got better this offseason via veteran football players. And then James Bradberry, I talked about him getting released. They signed James Bradberry to complete what was a strong offseason to a one-year, $10 million deal. So the Eagles feel like they're ready to compete, ready to go after it right now. They're kind of pushing not all of their chips to the center of the table, but a vast majority of them to the center of the table with this collection of one-year deals and guys that they want them to help this season. We'll see if it proves to be fruitful or if they're just reshuffling the deck for a new quarterback next year. The Washington Commanders, talked about them acquiring Carson Wentz. That was the biggest move of their offseason, and it really kind of shook the foundation of their offseason. It forced them to release some players that they didn't have interest in releasing. It forced them to do some things to get creative with the cap. It also hampered them from being aggressive in free agency. So a lot was, happening there with Washington, but getting a quarterback was the most important thing. They had to do that this offseason. They did. And so that was really the extent of Washington's offseason and a big move, getting a quarterback. A lot of quarterback movement this offseason. Washington was a part of that by acquiring Carson Wentz for a couple of third-round picks. We talked about quarterback movement. The Atlanta Falcons, similar boat to the Cleveland Browns. Matt Ryan was the source of conversation because the Falcons were literally within hours of getting Deshaun Watson to sign on the dotted line. He had already started reaching out to Jarvis Landry and players like Leonard Fournette to try to recruit them to come to Atlanta to play with him. And then the Browns swoop in the 25th hour and give him a deal he could not refuse, a Godfather deal, essentially, and left the Falcons standing at the altar. And then they turned to Matt Ryan and he said, "Don't look at me. you just shitted all over me. Don't look at me. I want out." So similar to Baker Mayfield, who felt disrespected, Matt Ryan felt disrespected. And so they did right by Matt Ryan, trade him to Indianapolis. And now they have Marcus Mariota at quarterback. They also drafted a young fella in the draft in Desmond Ridder. So they've got what they think is going to be the future at the quarterback position now on the roster. Calvin Ridley was suspended for the entire 2022 season indefinitely for gambling and betting on the NFL while he was out last season for personal reasons. And so, the Falcons have a lot going on there, a lot to navigate. They did trade for Bryan Edwards last week. I like that move. Gives them another receiver that I think has some really good upside. He just needed an opportunity, and for whatever reason, he wasn't getting enough exposure and looks in Vegas. He's going to get all the opportunities because they have nothing at receiver. They just drafted Drake London in the first round at the receiver position. So Bryan Edwards should be a welcome sight for Falcons fans. Carolina Panthers, again, they were amongst 4 or 5 teams that were, embedded in the quarterback rumor mill because they got Sam Darnold starting at quarterback. So every time someone talked about a veteran quarterback with some chops, Carolina's name came up because they got Sam Darnold at quarterback. But they ultimately didn't do anything. They didn't go after Deshaun Watson. They dropped out of that relatively quickly. They did not pursue Baker Mayfield. Although their name continues to be linked to Baker Mayfield, they still haven't done anything there. They draft Matt Corral in the 3rd round of the 2022 NFL draft. So I don't know if Carolina's actually interested in Baker Mayfield or not. We'll see. But one thing's for sure, they are looking at the future, and they reshuffled a lot of their assistant coaches. And so now this is a put up or shut up season for Matt Rule. Okay. They had to have him get some guys with NFL experience. They were not happy with Joe Brady and some of the other guys that they had on the staff that didn't have the NFL chops. So now they've done that. Let's see if they get the results that they desire. And we'll see what happens with the Panthers this upcoming season. And Cam Newton, the door has not been slammed shut on his return either. They've been linked to so many quarterbacks because, once again, their starting quarterback is Sam Darnold. There's always an upgrade and a better option out there when Sam Darnold's your starting quarterback. New Orleans Saints, so surprise, surprise, Sean Payton retires. No one sees that coming, and jumps right into a cozy booth job. And so it left the Saints scrambling for a second, but they handled it cool, calm, and collected. They essentially just promoted from within, and now Dennis Allen is the new head man in New Orleans. That defense is still intact. They didn't allow anything crazy to happen, but they signed Jarvis Landry, which was a big move for them. And they also drafted Chris Olave, reshaping the way that their offense looks, because they also drafted Trevor Penning because they lost Teron Armstead, their all-world left tackle, in free agency. So Saints pretty much kept it status quo, but they did some of the necessary things to upgrade their football team. And they seem to be in a position where they feel like they're comfortable if Jameis Winston can come back healthy and ready to play good football. Speaking of Jameis Winston, his former team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady retires, then Tom Brady unretires. Bruce Arians does retire, but he's still going to be around. So a lot happened there from the standpoint of head coach. They promote just like the Saints did from within, and just like the Saints did, they promote their defensive coordinator to head coach. Todd Bowles, now the new head man in Tampa Bay. And we're going to see what that means for the Buccaneers, but Brady's back in the saddle. That means a lot for that organization. We don't know where they were going to go at quarterback without Tom Brady. Now that Brady's back, they've got a chance to compete and potentially win another Super Bowl. Nothing else really noteworthy. They did franchise tag Chris Godwin, ultimately worked out a long-term deal with him, but nothing really earth-shattering for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this offseason in terms of player movement and acquisition. You go to the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, again, nothing really major. They do lose Chandler Jones. They do lose Christian Kirk, both to free agency. But the biggest news for them this offseason was all about Kyler Murray. That thing got ugly for a second there. Cooler heads have prevailed since. He's still waiting on a long-term deal. I don't know if they're ready to give him what he's looking for, but he's going to be an Arizona Cardinal. They're not going to do anything stupid. So That was the biggest news coming out of Arizona, was what the hell's going on with Kyler Murray, and are they going to mismanage this the way the Houston Texans did, to the point of no return? Doesn't seem like it's going down that road, but stay tuned. Kyler Murray is a different cat. Los Angeles Rams, they're always the center of attention in the offseason because they don't give a shit about draft picks. They care about veteran players that can help them win right now. And they did it again. They go after veteran players. Allen Robinson is added after not bringing back Von Miller and trading away Robert Woods. So now they have Allen Robinson at wide receiver. As I mentioned, they wanted Von Miller back. They couldn't, find a deal, and he got that big contract with Buffalo. They couldn't match that. But, the Rams continue to go after it. They continue to bring in big name free agents, and we keep asking ourselves, how are they doing this? Aaron Donald wants a new contract. They're going to have to figure that out. But one thing's for sure, they keep going after guys. They were going after Stephon Gilmore. He's now in Indianapolis. That's another big move that the Colts made. They were going after him at one point. They still are in talks with Odell Beckham. When he gets healthy, he's shown mutual interest in wanting to come back to LA. So many things are happening with this Rams football team. They continue to get top-notch football players to come and play for them. And we keep asking ourselves, where are they getting this money? And a lot of it is they're just not having to spend it on free agent or on first round picks, on second round picks, because they usually don't start drafting until the third round. So, and they're finding guys in the fifth, sixth round that aren't going to cost them a lot to fill in the gaps as well. San Francisco 49ers, they were a source of, heavy quarterback conversation because of Jimmy Garoppolo. They're ready to move on to the Trey Lance chapter of their story. And Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be trade bait. Well, he had to have shoulder surgery. That really put a pause on everyone that was interested. He's now healthy, ready to go. And the 49ers are looking around and no one's interested. And they're dying for someone to take Jimmy Garoppolo off their hands. But they may ultimately be stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo, when the season gets underway now. If an injury happens to a team that's playing well, Jimmy Garoppolo could easily be trade bait there. But right now, everyone seems to be content with what they have at the quarterback position. He wasn't going to be first on anybody's radar to begin with, but he was going to be an intriguing option. Now, I think the 49ers have to just sit and wait and hope someone has an injury to the quarterback position to really get any value out of Jimmy Garoppolo. But sans for that, the Deebo Samuel saga was just as juicy and salacious in San Francisco. He initially wanted out. Seems like cooler heads have prevailed there. He's not at OTAs. Don't expect him to be. The real test will be when training camp starts. Is he there day one for that, or is he making a statement by not showing up? He doesn't have any leverage in this situation. He's under contract, but the 49ers fully expect him to play ball. We'll see how that situation turns out. But a lot of drama, but it turned out to be much to do about nothing in San Francisco. And then Seattle, we talked about them already. They're pretty much rebuilding, and they don't. No one ever wants to admit that they're rebuilding, but that's essentially what they're doing. They traded Russell Wilson. They got Drew Lock, and they have Geno Smith at quarterback right now. They did not draft a rookie. They passed on the entire draft class of quarterbacks. And, they've got a roster that actually doesn't look half bad on paper. It's just tough. You put yourself in a position now where, you got to see what happens. But I expect them to be, non-competitive for at least the next 2-3 years. Even if they draft a rookie next year, that guy's going to come in and he's going to have to take his lumps. I don't expect Seattle to be competitive for at least the next 2 seasons, maybe even 3. Who knows? They could be stuck in purgatory now after not after Russell Wilson moving on. They could be stuck in quarterback purgatory for the next 30, 40 years. Who knows? These things are not easy. And when you have a guy, you got to find a way to keep that guy. They moved on from him, and now we'll see how that transition period goes and how long that transition period to the next quarterback that's actually successful is for Seattle. So what an offseason. I may have missed 1 or 2 things, but it's been a crazy offseason to say the least. And so now we transition to our next segment, and that is social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. You guys know what it is. If you're out there and you want to have your comment read, use the super chat function to jump to the front of the line, or else use the hashtag to have your comment read. LouieTLive is the hashtag to have your comment read on the air. So let's get to these super chats. And we start with Journey Reed. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Journey Reed. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB Rights. Just showing some love from work. Hope today was good. Hashtag Mob Squad. Thank you for the love and really, truly do appreciate you, Journey Reed. Thank you for that super chat. Got another super chat. This one is from Big Money Sunny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Big Money Sunny, who writes, Lou, we don't want to hear about no stinking Eagles. Well, I mean, they're a part of the NFL, and you know this is an NFL channel. So, and look, we're going to see what they do with all of the things that they've done. But it is a really interesting dynamic in Philadelphia. And I know there were a number of things that they did this offseason that people were not happy about, including, I know one Washington fan in particular, my guy Trevor Patch, wanted Jordan Davis and the Eagles, snatched him and jumped up and snatched him. So there's a lot of, things like that the Eagles did this offseason. It was a strong offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles. I got to give them credit. That is for certain. So got another super chat here. This one is from the Phillies Ace 34. Seems like it's been a little while. It's good to hear from you, the Phillies Ace 34, who writes, and thank you for the super chat. Writes, Louie, my guy, even with all the moves my Eagles made, they still have to perform and to be honest, Gannon scares me more than Hurts will. RD will RD be better? Jonathan Gannon should scare you because his lack of aggressiveness, his inability to get after quarterbacks, to want to just sit back, play coverage, that'll get you beat against really good teams with weapons on offense, with a quarterback that can distribute the football. That'll get you beat 9 times out of 10. So you have every right to be concerned about the defense. I would be equally as concerned, if not more so, with Jalen Hurts. But, that is a concern for sure, Jonathan Gannon, as your defensive coordinator. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Trevor Patch. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, Lou, it's been a fast season and it's been a lot of content compared to the past. Remember the cries about Bobby McCain being re-signed? I said, good. Continuity is key to zone defense. Glad you brought it up earlier. No excuse, JDR, hot seat. Again, I don't see anybody necessarily being on the hot seat, but I told you I didn't have a problem with Bobby McCain being back either. There are a lot of people that wanted Bobby McCain gone. I told you I didn't have a problem with him being back. I just thought we could upgrade the position. Clearly, they felt that they needed to add to it, not necessarily upgrade it with the Percy Butler drafting. But look, it's been a solid offseason. Washington didn't do a lot in the way of adding new players. They added a couple of ex-Carolina Panthers offensive linemen, but for the most part, and a defensive lineman at that. But for the most part, they did a good job of keeping the nucleus of the team together, bringing guys back to see if they couldn't, capitalize on just the sheer fact that guys have played with one another and know what to expect from the guy next to him. So we'll see. We can sit here and make excuses about this, that, and the third. Injuries are a real thing. That's not an excuse. Okay. Injuries are a real thing in this league, and teams that handle that the best, teams that are fortunate enough to stay healthy, are usually the ones that end up with the most bricks in the left-hand column. That said, we'll see what happens. Jack was really adamant about having continuity on the back end and having guys show up for OTAs and things of that nature. And we'll see. We'll see if it translates to, look, this schedule again with the teams that we're playing and the quarterbacks rather that we're playing, it sets Washington and their defense up for a big bounce back rebound type season. But I will know that it's fool's gold. I know that if we light it up defensively this year, I'm not gonna dismiss it, but I'm gonna say, all right, show me when you're playing elite level quarterbacks, because we didn't do well with that schedule. But again, we weren't as tied together as a unit last year with so many moving parts, and William Jackson III coming over, Bobby McCain coming over, and so many different guys, Benjamin St. Juste being a rookie, so many new parts for Washington, especially in that secondary. No excuse for the defensive line to play the way that they did early in the season, but the secondary definitely had their fair share of excuses. But whatever the case may be, as you mentioned, no excuses for anyone. That includes head coach Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, everyone. I want to see results this season. And they know that. That's why they did the things that they did this offseason, because they themselves know that this is a big season, and they've said it. Ron has said it numerous times. It's a big offseason, and this is a big upcoming season, to the point where Jonathan Allen has talked about getting fans more involved and coming out to the games, wanting more fan engagement and talking to other players on the team about what they can do, jersey giveaways and things like that on social media. They're serious about trying to fill up the stadium with fans, because they understand how important it is to keep the other team's fans from turning it into a road game. So it's not just the coaching staff that realizes how big of a season this can be. Also, the players are starting to take heed as well. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Big Money Sonny, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, remember Kevin Hart in 40-year-old version? Salacious. I'm going to take your words as a sign of disrespect. yeah. That was one of my favorite scenes from that movie, where he and my guy, the bald-headed dude, were going at it in the video store. You just reminded me of that whole exchange, man. That's a classic. That's a classic movie scene between two comedians. That scene with Kevin Hart, and I don't know why I never remember his name, but he's the dude from all of the Steve Harvey movies. What is it called? I don't remember what they're called, but yeah, that was a funny ass scene right there. Anyway, watch your mouth and help me with this sale. that whole scene was hilarious. I'm just thinking about that whole scene. That was funny. That's a funny ass movie anyway, to begin with. But anyway, thank you for that super chat, Big Money Sonny. That was hilarious. The Phillies Ace 34, stand up. You are officially the newest member of the MOBB. Thank you for joining the Mob Squad, the Phillies Ace 34. Mob, we know he's an outsider, but still open your arms, welcome the Phillies Ace 34, and show him much love, man. This is a guy that has shown us love here, so we need to reciprocate that by showing the Phillies Ace 34 some love. Welcome back to the squad, the Phillies Ace 34. The Phillies Ace 34, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, and thank you for becoming the newest member of the MOBB, who writes, sorry, been super busy with work and kids, but you're my boy. You just rep the wrong colors. The door is open for you to come and join the Eagles. I hear you, man. I've been invited by numerous fan bases to say, hey, look, man, you are awesome. To hell with the burgundy and gold. They suck. You deserve better. Come join us. I can't, man. This thing is in my veins. It's nothing I can do, man. And even if I could, I wouldn't change it. I mean, that's not who I am. It's not in my DNA, but I appreciate the offer, but thanks, but absolutely no thanks. But it's always good to chop it up with you. And look, when work is good, that means the money's good. So I'm happy that you were getting after it. But I'm glad to see you and hear from you, man. It's always good. So appreciate you stopping through, joining the mob, and I look forward to chopping it up with you in the near future. The Phillies ace 34. JP, my guy, John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. John writes, I'm giving Wentz a chance to do well, but if it doesn't work, Washington needs to look at getting CJ Stroud via draft trade in 2023, regardless of asking price. So, look, at the end of the day, you're gonna have multiple teams vying for probably 3, maybe 4. It depends on how the college football season goes, and if any quarterback that we're not talking about, like a Will Levis, for instance, at Kentucky, ascends to a level where teams are now interested in drafting this guy in the first round. Right now, I think there are 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks that are intriguing. Obviously, Bryce Young, Alabama, and then CJ Stroud, Ohio State. Those 2 are definites. Okay. The kid, Anthony Richardson at Florida, has all the tools, looks like Trey Lance on steroids. So if he continues to play at the level that people think he can and stays healthy, he will also add his name into the list of quarterbacks. And then we'll see if anybody comes, because every year, generally, there's one quarterback that comes off the beaten path. You're not expecting him, and all of a sudden he ascends. Zach Wilson was that guy 2 years ago. Before that, Josh Allen did it as well. We've seen quarterbacks, come out of nowhere. Baker Mayfield did it. So we see this all the time where quarterbacks kind of come from nowhere, shoot up to number 1, shoot up to number 2. So we'll see if there are any other quarterbacks that do that. But I said all of that to say this. Even if Carson Wentz doesn't work, what you're going to find is that we're not going to be the only team looking to go up to get a quarterback. And we might not have enough draft capital to get the job done. As I've said, teams like Philadelphia have positioned themselves to go up. And then don't forget, like Cincinnati did with Joe Burrow, if I stink bad enough and I have the number 1 pick, I don't give a shit what you're offering. I'm not giving up all of that draft capital. I mean, I'm not giving up the chance to draft Joe Burrow just because you got 3 first-round picks that you're offering me. Thanks, but no thanks. Joe Burrow's work to me is greater than your draft picks that you're giving me. So if the team that lands at number 1 needs a quarterback, there's no amount of draft picks that you can give that team to get them to move off of drafting Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. And then the Eagles, you're not beating them out with the draft capital that they have and what they can give up. You're not getting in front of them in line in terms of what they'll be willing to part ways with to move up into the top 5, potentially to get a quarterback. So again, I just find it hard to believe that Washington will have the necessary draft capital to go up and get a quarterback. So we got to hope. And also remember, we're not even thinking like that because we drafted Sam Howell. So you got to also understand they're no longer thinking about, oh, if Wentz doesn't work, we got to go and we got to find a way to get up into the top 5. We got a guy that they think could be the future of the quarterback position. So I don't think they're even remotely looking in the direction that you're looking in because they got Sam Howell now. So I love that they got Sam Howell because it stops us from having to even have those conversations of, hey, if Wentz doesn't work, what are we going to do to fortify the quarterback position? Well, we got a guy that we're going to see what he can do. So I don't think they're going to be looking in that direction, JP. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, JP. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Kyle writes, Lou, what's your dental hygiene routine? They pearly. Honestly, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I don't have a routine. I don't floss. Every year I go to the dentist and they ask me, have I flossed? And I tell them no. I'm not gonna lie to you, no. So this past year, let me tell you how garbage I am in the dental game. Now, one thing I will never allow myself to do is, like, I can never understand somebody that has a gap, gets braces, has to wear a retainer, and then doesn't wear the retainer and allows the gap to come back to any extent, whether it's just the tiniest bit or it goes back to its original space and your teeth shift back to the way they were prior to the braces being put on. I can never understand that. You pay all that money and obviously you care about your teeth and your smile and your appearance, or else you wouldn't have got, braces. Michael Strahan's like, I don't give a shit about that. I'm cool with my gap. I'm confident in who I am with my gap. So I don't need to get it fixed. If that's how you feel, more power to you. And I'm glad you feel that way, but for people like myself that are self-conscious, that you have a gap and you want to have your teeth fixed, How could you allow your teeth to spread back out by not wearing the simplest thing? Just wear your damn retainer. Like, anyway, I wear my retainer religiously. I don't brush twice a day. I brush once, but I brush before I eat or drink anything. That's because a lot of people, and they tell you to brush after meals, and that's good because you get the plaque and all that stuff off your teeth. But here's the thing. If you use good toothpaste, which is, again, I will never understand people that eat first and then brush their teeth. That's bass backwards. To me, you brush your teeth because the toothpaste and what you do brushing your teeth, you're essentially giving your teeth the protection it needs to defend itself against plaque and buildup and all the things that you're going to sink your teeth into throughout the course of the day. When you do it backwards, you're allowing all that stuff to gather on your teeth, and then you're trying to brush it off afterwards. Just doesn't make sense to me, doing it that way. Now, if you want to brush your teeth first and then you want to brush your teeth after every meal, by all means, knock yourself out. I don't have any problems with that. But you need to arm your teeth with the ability to protect itself by brushing your teeth first. I know this is not a dental, and look, I am not a dentist, okay? I do not give dental advice. All right. So just so we all are clear on this. However, this is what I do. I don't floss. I want to floss. I'm too lazy to floss. Flossing hurts and it makes my gums bleed. And I don't have like gum, gingivitis or gum disease or anything like that. But my gums are just sensitive. So I bought a water pick. I was so excited. So I'm an avid Black Friday shopper, right? So I buy this water pick because I saw it at the dentist. They were trying to sell me one for an arm and a leg. I'm like, hell no, I'm not paying that shit for no damn water pick. I said, I'll find one on Black Friday. So I put it on my Black Friday list. And sure enough, I went to Best Buy. They had a nice water pick on sale for $40. It was a steal. I bought it. I was so excited. I haven't opened that thing yet. And that's supposed to be an alternative to flossing. So I'm extremely lazy when it comes to flossing. But what I do make sure that I do is I take care of my teeth by brushing them first thing in the morning when I get up. Again, I'm one of those people. Don't come in my face if your breath stinks. Okay. I'll let you know real quick. Your shit is tart. Back up. Okay. Give me some space. But I also make sure that I brush my teeth. And if something's in my teeth, I go and get it. I don't let shit just sit there and fester. So, and I wear my retainer. That's my dental hygiene, essentially. So, I appreciate the compliment, though. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. Jay Willard, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Jay Willard, writes, what's up, Louie? What's good with you? Jay Willard, he says, just showing some love to you and the mob. Stand up. Y'all know what it is. Stand up. We in the building. You heard my man, Jay Willard, faithful member of the MOBB. Says, blessings to you and yours. Enjoy those twins while they're young, man. They growing up so fast, Jay. So fast, Jay. My God, me and my wife were just talking the other day about how quickly my son, we're going to groom him to be a basketball. I'm going to groom him, and my wife, we're going to groom him to be a basketball player, right? We don't want him to play football unless he loves football. I'm not going to stop him from playing football if he falls in love with football, and I'm going to expose him to everything, but I want him to play basketball, right? This dude is built like a damn offensive lineman, though. Okay, he's 5 months. He's going on 6 months, but he's wearing like 18-month clothes. Like, that's how crazy it is right now for us in these streets with my son. He's the big dude, man. So they're growing up quick, man. They're, moving around now. They're starting to roll around. So it's happening fast. And, we're done. This is it, and I just want to savor this. I want to enjoy it because we're not doing it again. I'm going to miss these infant stages when they need you the most because they can't fend for themselves. I'm going to miss that. So I'm trying to enjoy it. So thank you, Jay Willard, and God bless you as well. Yes, Romany Malco, Pac-Man, yes, Romany Malco. I don't know why I can't ever remember his name, but Romani Malco is hilarious in 40-year-old version. He's just a hilarious dude overall. It's crazy because I haven't seen him in any projects of late, but the dude is hilarious. And that scene, he says the funniest line during that exchange with him and Kevin Hart, is Clooney talking about his size, but it was something else about shooting him. And it was just, oh my God, it's so funny. After this is done, I'm going to go back and watch it. It's such a funny sequence there. But anyway, Viscount Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBBSQUAD. My guy, Viscount writes, love the player interviews yesterday. We have level-headed, high-character guys on the roster. Allen is a true leader. I loved it too. It was long, and it was like a bunch of dudes, and you just got to listen to them talk, and you're right. But this is what they wanted. This is what Ron Rivera wanted. When he talked about changing the culture, these are the types of players he was talking about acquiring. And so you talk about Curtis Samuel, you talk about Antonio Gibson, you talk about Jahan Dotson, William Jackson III. These are all guys that weren't here when Ron got here. These are guys that they acquired, that they felt like were good character fits in the locker room. Jonathan Allen and Cole Holcomb were the only two guys that spoke yesterday that were here before Ron and the company got here. So you see what direction they're going in. Jamin Davis is another guy that you'll absolutely love when you listen to him talk. These are the types of players that they want in their locker room. Stand-up guys, high character, high IQ. That's what they want. Now we're going to see if it manifests itself to talent on the football field with these guys now having a little bit of continuity, having spent time with one another on and off the field, which is just as important. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Viscount, thank you for the super chat. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, missed your earlier podcast. Thoughts on OTAs? Believe in the hype in Kelvin Harmon. Thoughts on AGG moving to tight end? I'll believe it when I see it. I don't believe in any hype of anybody moving to tight end position. Excuse me. They have 3 tight ends that they really like and a 4th that they're intrigued by. So I'm assuming all of these guys that are projects, the only thing I think they're trying to determine, and they will determine to some extent, I don't know if they'll give up on it, this year or not, but the only thing that I think Kelvin Harmon and AGG and, the undrafted kid from Ohio and all those other players, the only thing that I think that they're going to force Washington to do is maybe speed up the process on whether they want to continue to invest time, energy, and resources into Samis Reyes. But, I mean, again, you got John Bates, you have Logan Thomas, and now you have Cole Turner. So you got 3 tight ends right there. Okay, now if they're keeping a 4th tight end, we'll see. Are they going to keep Alex Arma as a fullback / tight end on the roster? We'll see. But at the end of the day, if they keep a 4th tight end, then things get interesting. Is it Samis Reyes? They claimed he was the best blocker and the most physical guy on the roster. Okay, we'll see. But, AGG is still going to be 225, pounds, 30 max. Like, I can't see him bulking up overnight. Same with Kelvin Harmon. These guys aren't the biggest in the world. And not only that, they got to learn the nuances of the tight end position. It's going to be a process for those guys. Darren Waller didn't become the tight end freak that we see now overnight. It took 3 years for Darren Waller to make the transition from, college wide receiver to NFL wide receiver / tight end to straight up NFL tight end. So the finished product that you see now in Vegas is cool, but that didn't happen overnight. That took years of work. So we'll see what happens with the rest of those guys. Anyway, I digress there. Let's see. Got a super chat here from Protect Sports Network. Thank you for the super chat, Protect Sports Network. My guy Tones writes, yo, Lou, what it do, bro? What's good with you, Tones? He says, glad to see you. See you at 8. Likewise. So y'all heard the man. Roll over to Tones channel at 8 tonight. I'll be kicking it with him, and we'll be chopping it up, doing a show together, talking about the Washington Commanders. So we'll see you there at 8. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you, my guy, Big Money Sonny, who writes, I'm tired of hoping and waiting to see if our quarterback works. They've all been buns. If this ish doesn't work, get them all out of here. Just my humble opinion. So again, don't lump Sam Howell into that discussion, and don't lump Taylor Heineke, because he's where he's supposed to be now. Heineke's supposed to be a backup quarterback in this league, and a damn good one. As long as he's with Scott Turner. I don't know if Taylor Heineke succeeds anywhere else, because he doesn't know the playbook and he's not as comfortable and familiar with what they're going to ask him to do. And remember, Scott Turner always had an affinity for Taylor Heineke. Like Heineke said, Scott Turner was the only guy that showed up at his pro day when he was at ODU when Turner was a member of the Minnesota Vikings. So there's an affinity there. Always find you somebody that loves you the way Scott Turner loves, Taylor Heineke, or the way Jay Gruden loved Colt McCoy. Always find you somebody that loves you in that regard. So he's perfect where he is. But if you're talking Wentz or whatever, yeah, that's fine. But we'll see. At the end of the day, we're in no position to clean house at quarterback because we've been looking for a franchise one for damn near 40 years. We had one in Kirk Cousins. That wasn't good enough for most of you out there. And so now we're back to square one. So we're not in a position to clean house. We got to see whatever. We got to exhaust every option because that's where we are in our process. And I get it. You're tired. We're all tired. We're all fatigued. We all want this quarterback thing to be resolved so we can move on to bigger and better things. But it's a process. It's just we've been going through it for a very long time. Barrett Downing, my guy BD, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Barrett Downing writes, USPS representing out there on these streets, slinging that mail like the dope man. You helped me through my day, Lou. Respect. Hey, man. Yeah, I got a tough job. Like days like today aren't hard. It's the days when it's the dog days of summer. You're in late July, early August, and it's 100. It's 99, but with the heat index, it's 110. Feels like 110. That's when I'm like, man, bless y'all hearts. Y'all are the real true MVPs, man. So, hell yeah, it's rough out here in these streets, man. But like you said, y'all be out here slinging the mail like dope, man. And we can't, and we need it. We got to have it, for as much of, everyone trying to go to emails and trying to go paperless, you still got to get certain things through the mail. Like you still got to get your card, your credit card, even when it expires, you need a new one. Still got to get through the mail, right? It's like still certain things you got to get through the mail. So we need y'all, man. And y'all be out here holding it down, man. So we truly do appreciate you, BD. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Trev, my guy Trevor Patch writes, JP, CJ Stroud, Lou, quarterback Brennan Armstrong. You've been talking about the University of Virginia quarterback Brennan Armstrong for a very long time. You thought he was coming out this year. He decided to go back to school. So we'll see if he does exactly what you said, rises to the ranks of the noteworthy and also, moves that needle and starts to really have a conversation around him. We'll see what he does, but you've been banging the table for him. And if he turns out to be good, I will give you credit because you were on the Brennan Armstrong train a long time and way before anybody else was, but we'll see what happens there. Condoleezza Perry, my girl, Condo P. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB and the secretary here on the Louie T Network, who writes, have you ever considered hosting a Twitter space chat for the Mob Squad? It's a cool feature. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Actually, Condo P, you started the conversation about a Discord, and I told you I tinkered around with that, but to no avail for me. I got something else in the works. I'm trying to, come up with something. If I can't, maybe that'll be like a last resort doing something on Twitter. But I think I'm cooking up some crack behind the scenes. So give me a chance to see if this has any legs to it and any validity to it. If not, then maybe that Twitter space in the chat. I've seen people doing that. It seems like it is pretty cool. I haven't really fully explored it, but I've seen people doing it. I've been invited a couple of times. I'm like, I'm good. But it's something different. So we'll see. But let me see if what I'm cooking up here behind the scenes has any legs to it first. Thank you for that, Condo P. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Red Wings 01 writes, not gonna lie, not a fan of the Alex Erickson signing. Like the player, but I'd rather see a 29-year-old with little upside make the roster over young guys like Milne or Izzard. I hope he lights a fire under him. And maybe that is what Ron Rivera and company are they're hedging their bets. Maybe like, don't look at this as a replacement for DeAndre Carter, and he's definitely making the football team. Look at it as we're not sure about Dax Milne or Izzard or any of these guys that were undrafted, and we don't want to put all our eggs in that basket. We've done that with Steven Sims before, and it backfired on us. So we don't want to do that again, where you end up with Dontrell Inman and Isaiah Wright as your football players during the season, and you're screwed. So I think what Ron and company have effectively done is they said, look, we don't know if Dax Milne or this Izzard kid is going to be able to give us what we want. But in the event that they can't, we don't have to go scouring the NFL streets looking for a replacement and that guy's gone. We'll take him, put him on the roster now. And if those guys pan out, we can always release Alex Erickson, okay? But if those guys don't work out, we got a guy on the roster that we feel confident can handle those roles for us, and we don't have to go in scramble mode looking for a replacement. You see what I'm saying? It's almost being safe rather than being sorry. So there's no guarantees to Alex Erickson, okay? He's not guaranteed in a lock to make the roster. But similar to, last year with DeAndre Carter, he's the fallback guy. And if need be, we got a guy. So that's the way I view that. Not necessarily as he's a lock, but, we got a guy just in case of an emergency. But as you mentioned, that's been the role, the road that they've traveled since getting here, is they much rather side with the young guy with upside versus the older veteran. Now, 29 isn't super old, but, it's old when comparing him to a 24-year-old Dax Milne or a 22, 23-year-old Izzard. So, yeah, it looks a lot older when you look at it from that prism there. The Phillies ace, 34, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. I think you doubled up. Feels like you doubled up. Might have been tripling up at this point, but I remember the super chat, so that might have been that. Either way, yeah. The Phillies ace 34 writes, "Hey, I know I can't get you to join my Eagles, but at least can we clown the Giants and Cowboys? Hopefully, my Phillies can beat the Braves. You already beat us once on Monday night. We snuck one from you Tuesday." Now it's the rubber match. I think it's a 3-game set. It might be a 4-game series, but we're both 20 and 23 on the season. So I need it just as bad as you do. You need it just as bad as I do. We're both trying to catch the Mets, who are playing exceptional baseball right now. So the only thing that gives me confidence is we did the same shit last year and then we turned it up. Difference is it's not the same roster. We don't have Freddie Freeman. It's not the same team. But I do think our pitching will eventually get better and help may be on the way later on in the season. But this is not the same roster. It's not the same team. And so you can't expect to just turn it on like that. We got to get our shit together. We haven't had a 3-game win streak the entire season. That's our problem right now. We can't string together wins. So hopefully we can make it 2 in a row by beating you tonight and then give ourselves a chance to finally get that all-elusive 3-game win streak going. But we're going to clown every team in the division, including yours, if clowning is necessary. But, credit when credit is due, it's given. But when clowning is necessary, like with Joe Judge and the Giants last year, that's going to happen too. So, it's all love. But at the same time, if you slipping and tripping, expect to get a nice ripping over here on the Louie T Network. So, Protect Sports Network. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Protect Sports Network, who writes, "Lou, you the GOAT." I appreciate that, Tones. Thank you so much. Brody, period, Slim. It's all good, man. It's all love. I truly do appreciate you. And I love to see your growth, man. So look forward to chopping it up with you later on tonight. Y'all check me out over on his channel and support. If you haven't already subbed this channel up, go ahead and do that. We're going to chop it up tonight at 8 o'clock. Red Wings 01. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Red Wings 01, who writes, "To amend my statement, if Erickson ends up being exactly what we need and he contributes, then all right, good to have you aboard." No, I know exactly what you meant. I know exactly. And you're not wrong for feeling the way that you feel. I'm telling you, this is what I think they feel. They're feeling like, hey, we just need to cover our bases. If we let him stay out on the free agent market, somebody else is going to sign him. So We just want to make sure he's already here in camp with us in the event that these other kids just aren't ready. Dax Milne isn't ready. Izzard isn't ready. And we need to, go to the well. We got a guy, if these kids are ready and Alex Erickson is expendable and we can move on from him. So I think that's the way they're going to, kind of move with that situation. And there was no confusion. I knew exactly what you meant. Anyway, I digress. See, we got another super chat. And we do. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, Discord, Twitter Spaces, whatever crack you're cooking, it's time for the LTN and the mob to expand worldwide, Lou. Salutes, my good brother. You're right. It's time for us to take our talents abroad and expand our horizons further than just this YouTube community that we've created, which is a great one. But I do want to keep the conversation going. That's what I really want to do. So we're going to do something. I promise you guys that. If you're a member of the Mob Squad, expect expansion, expect more for your hard-earned dollar. I appreciate you guys and expect more, expect more in the near future. So I agree, Big Money Sonny. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, sorry, Lou, we're looking at a Subway Series, Yankees, Mets. I just hope I have much more vested interest in the Commanders that time if of the year. I hope it's not. I can't stand either one of those organizations. Obviously, I'm a Braves fan, so I can't stand the Mets. And if you're not a Yankees fan, then you hate the Yankees. They're the evil empire in baseball. But you have to have a good villain in baseball. The Yankees are always that. They'll always be that because they're the Yankees. Even down to the fact that you can't have facial hair bothers me. So, yeah, the Yankees are the Yankees, and I'm starting to not like the Red Sox either. They're starting to turn into Yankees Junior, but I get it. When in Rome, do as in Rome. If the Yankees are going to buy up all of the free agents out there, you got to keep pace with them. You can't just sit on your hands like we're going to do it organically. No, you got to go out here and you got to go and sign Trevor Story, and you got to sign this guy and got to sign that guy. I can't afford everybody, which is why Mookie Betts is now a Dodger. But yeah, I get it. But I don't think it's going to. One of these two teams are going to fall off. I'm counting on it being the Mets. They're going to fall off. They can't keep this pace. The Yankees, however, are capable of continuing to play outstanding baseball. So we'll see. But my guess is that the Mets fall off at some point this season, whether it be, somebody else in the division catching them or they just aren't as good. I can't see them making it to the World Series, though. But we'll see. You never know. Stranger things have happened. And you're right. When we get to October, it could easily be Washington's already 1-6. And you're like, man, to hell with them. I'm worried about this baseball. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. With this schedule, with this year, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to be in a position where you're no longer interested in football. But in past years, that was definitely a realistic possibility that you get to October and this team sucked and you weren't really fully invested at that point. So I totally get it. And in any event, that is the last super chat. And that was a lot more than I thought it was going to be. And so with that said, we are now going to transition to our final segment of the show and garbage time. So I wanted to talk about one specific topic on garbage time. And I know you guys saw this. It came out yesterday. But the NFL is thinking about doing away with the Pro Bowl game itself altogether. Now, they still want to honor players that have been among the best at their respective positions in the league. They want to acknowledge them. That's a part of the process. Having a guy be a 12-time Pro Bowl player is part of your credentials getting you into the Hall of Fame. So they don't want to do away with that. And remember, there was that one year with COVID where they had Pro Bowlers, but they didn't actually have a game. They are thinking about totally doing away. The game sucks. I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in every bit of 10 to 15 years. I used to watch it faithfully as a kid. Love the Pro Bowl. I think the Pro Bowl is for kids. It's not for adults that know what the game is supposed to look like, because it's not real football. And none of those guys are out there trying to get hurt. I mean, once upon a time, Sean Taylor lambasted the punter. Like, they're not doing that anymore. These guys respect each other. They're not out there to hurt each other. It's not as bad as the NBA All-Star game, where it's essentially a, open gym, just summer league type atmosphere, but it's close, and so it's not 67-60 final score. They're still playing defense, and they're not just running up the scoreboard, but at the end of the day, it's not a great product. It's hard to watch. It's hard to stomach. It's hard to market. It's hard to sell if you're the NFL, which if they could still sell this, if they could still market this, if they were still getting eyeballs, even though it's, to me, antiquated at this point, they would still do it, right? But the fact is, the numbers show them, the data shows them that this is no longer something that's fruitful for the NFL. You're wasting your time. And now they're going to try to switch gears and do something else. So they're taking suggestions on what they could do to spruce up the Pro Bowl. And I think they're going to do away with the game altogether. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think most of you do either. I honestly like the fact that they're going to go ahead and do away with the game, because a lot of these dudes who were 4- and 5-time Pro Bowlers, they're not looking to go. Like, it used to be an honor because it was in Hawaii. Who doesn't want a free trip to Hawaii? Take my whole family, go after the season's done. I'm looking for a break anyway. Take the family to Hawaii, enjoy ourselves on the NFL's dime. Yeah, that was an honor. Now that the game is in Orlando or somewhere basic that you can go get in your car and drive, or, get a quick little economy flight, man, who gives a rat's ass? Like, Hawaii was a destination for players, because if you're a third-round pick and you're not making no real money, shit, you go to the Pro Bowl, you're excited about going to Hawaii. That's still an expensive ticket for you. You're an 8-time Pro Bowler. You're not worried about going to the Pro Bowl. Yeah, I got an ankle, man. I'm not coming to that shit. So now you're getting to the third alternate. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that guys are 3-time Pro Bowlers. 2 of those times he was a third alternate, but he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. That's not the essence of what the Pro Bowl is supposed to be about. So for me, I would prefer them not play the game, so the players that are actually Pro Bowl players are acknowledged as Pro Bowlers, and then you don't have the 4th alternate getting into the game and being acknowledged as a Pro Bowler. You're not a Pro Bowler if you're a 3rd alternate. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. So I like that they're going to try and do something different. I want to see what they try to do. I actually thought that some of those little games that they did last year, I didn't watch any of it, but it reminded me of when I was a kid, when they would be on the beach and they would be playing some of these games. They did away with that because if you remember, the running back for the Patriots, I forgot his name. I think it was Edwards or something like that. He tore his ACL, playing the little games that they play at the Pro Bowl one year. He tore his ACL. So they was like, all right, we got to stop doing this shit. So, I like the little games that they had, like Russell Wilson was throwing the football, like kind of like skill challenges. They used to have those back in the day. And then they stopped doing them and they brought them back again. And they used to have the strongest man award. Larry Allen used to win it every year. But I like that they're bringing some of that stuff back. I thought it was really entertaining. You had the Diggs brothers out there doing some stuff. And I saw the clips on socials and I was like, oh man, that's pretty damn cool. So I wouldn't mind seeing them do more of that stuff. And then also, the skills competitions. But, Chad Johnson was like, hey, we should get all of the ex-Pro Bowl players to go against the current Pro Bowl players and like some flag football type stuff. I'm good. I don't need to see that because where's the excitement and enjoyment out of that? That's probably no different than watching fan-controlled football league, right? With all these aging veteran players that used to be in the NFL that can't let it go, that decide, I'm going to go out there. Vic's about to go play in a game. T.O. and Johnny Manziel are out there like, yeah, I'm good. So the Pro Bowl to me is just antiquated. If they did nothing, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Players just need to be acknowledged for making the Pro Bowl. That's how I feel about that. But anyway, I digress. Make sure we don't have any more super chats, and we don't. So that's how I want to end the show. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. This was a fun show. We went everywhere from 40-year-old virgin to dental hygiene and water picks to the crazy bananas NFL offseason to social media and creating a bigger space for the MLB. We were all over the place. I love it. Those are the best podcasts. So in any event, you know what this is, man. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys take care. We're going to run this back tomorrow because I told you I wanted to do one on Friday. I'm not going to be in the office on Friday, but I wanted to get 3 podcast episodes in the books this week. So I think we're going to come back. I can't for 100% certainty guarantee you that I'll be back, but right now it's like an 80% chance that we're doing a podcast tomorrow. So hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow. But you know, again, I always tell you, if life happens and I'm not able to do a podcast tomorrow, then charge it to my my head, not my heart. Okay. Anyway, with that said, you guys take care. Hopefully you'll come over, join me at 8 p.m. on Protect Sports Network and kick it with me and Tones. But in any event, I'll see you guys. If you're a Washington Commanders fan, if I don't see you tonight on Tones channel, I'll see you tomorrow night here on the LouieTeeNetwork for the Command Post Live. Either way, you guys have a good one. God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.